the Naruto universe, there are a ton of very powerful characters, and because there's this litany of incredibly powerful characters, eventually rivalries pop up. See, whether it's Naruto and Sasuke, or Might Guy and Kakashi, when two powerhouses arise in the same generation, inevitably they become rivals. And by and large, these rivalries are usually neck and neck. The conversation of, oh, who would win, 8 Gates Guy or DMS Kakashi, or who would win, Naruto and Sasuke in their strongest forms, are still had in Naruto forums to this day. However, not all rivalries stay neck and neck forever. And sometimes rivalries that don't exist in universe are made to exist by us, the fans. Now, this usually only happens to people who are placed in rivalries that don't pan out, which is how, ironically, we got one of the most talked about rivalries in the entirety of the Naruto fandom: Sakura versus Hinata. See, Sakura and Hinata are not rivals, really, in any capacity whatsoever. In fact, I genuinely believe the amount of lines that Sakura and Hinata exchange is less than 10. And this makes sense. Sakura and Hinata are such drastically different characters that there'd be no circumstance in which they became rivals. Sakura's loud and commanding, while Hinata's very reclusive and shy. A situation where the two of them became rivals just wouldn't make all that much sense. However, because the rivalry that Sakura was placed in was against Ino, who she became much more powerful than very quickly, unfortunately, we didn't necessarily have a real rival for Sakura. We didn't even necessarily have a real rival for Sakura in love, which is the real reason her and Ino were rivals in the first place, as Ino pretty much as soon as Shippuden rolls around gives up on Sasuke and Sakura doesn't. And thus the foundation for the conversation of the rivalry between Sakura and Hinata isn't based off their characters' adversity to each other, but rather just based on the fact that they're the two strongest women in the anime. Well, at least from their generation. And thus, while nobody wonders whether or not Sakura and Hinata are friends, people do wonder, of the two of them, who would win in a fight? And this is a fun and interesting question, because the both of them have very differing fighting styles. Sakura, as a medical Kunoichi, focuses on keeping herself alive in combat and blowing people away with her raw strength, while Hinata, as a practitioner of the Gentle Fist, focuses on shutting down her opponents by striking their chakra points. And genuinely, the reason a battle between these two characters is so interesting is because they're both taijutsu users. A battle between the two of them wouldn't boil down to who can use the bigger chakra mech or who can hit who with genjutsu. It would be straight hands. And as we rarely have versus battles in the Naruto universe that would just boil down to straight hands, that's what makes this conversation so hotly debated. But today we hope to put that debate to bed, as I'm going to sit down and analyze the true strengths of both of these characters and unpack how those strengths could be used against each other. And then hopefully by the end of the video, using the evidence that I built for both of these characters, truly decide once and for all who wins in a fight. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, because today we're talking Sakura versus Hinata, the death match. But before we get to pontificating on this hypothetical bout, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you like hearing me talk about hypothetical verses, go ahead and follow my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk all other anime and manga. Or if you want to see me try to bring real-life challenges to the anime world, go ahead and follow my brand new channel that I created with Steven Heat, Chris Barnett, and Danny Mata called Anime IRL. Or if you just want to hear me talk about anime and manga, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime and manga this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So, a girl slugfest, all puns intended, because of Lady Katsuya, the two most powerful women from the Konoha 13. Two women of massive import who have played huge roles in saving the world multiple times. And while these two characters would never come to blows unless Sakura decided that she was in love with Naruto again, today we need to figure out, if they were to come to blows, who's coming out on top. Now, admittedly, when I say Sakura versus Hinata, a fair amount of you probably go, oh, it's Sakura, right? And by a pretty large margin. And while general knowledge and the feats we've seen from Sakura might point in that direction, Hinata has a lot of very interesting hacks that make this fight closer than you might actually anticipate. But enough talking about it, let me show you. Before we get into this fight, let's talk about how strong each of our two contestants is. So let's start with Hinata. Unfortunately, when it comes to feats, we don't have a huge amount for Hinata. Really, the reason that she's in a conversation of the battle against Sakura is because she receives Hamura's chakra in the last and destroys the Tenseigan alongside Naruto. When it comes down to canon manga feats, Hinata hasn't done a huge amount. See, pretty much the first thing that we ever saw from Hinata in terms of a feat was her battle against Neji in the Chunin exams. However, scaling Hinata in this battle against Neji is kind of difficult because basically any and all blows she lands on Neji are completely ineffective. However, fortunately for Hinata, that's not where her story ended. See, because even though Hinata hadn't been able to master all 64 palms by the end of Naruto's part 1, she actually, and this is actually something a lot of people don't know, changed the 64 palms technique to the protecting 64 palms technique. This technique allows Hinata to emit a constant stream of chakra from her palms, which she then forms into incredibly thin and incredibly sharp blades. And therefore, when she uses this technique on offense, she's able to strike incredibly precise points or very small objects. However, she can also use this technique defensively, as she's able to turn these blades into a wall of blades of sorts, allowing her to stop incoming ninjutsu or incoming taijutsu. However, by the time of the Pain Assault, Hinata had mastered all of the 8 trigram 64 techniques. However, she could also use the twin lion fists, which is a technique that covers her fists in chakra in the shape of lions and allows her to use all the gentle fist techniques that she could use before, but now if she makes contact with somebody or something, she drains the chakra of it, which allows for Hinata to essentially have an infinite battery so long as she's coming into contact with ninjutsu or the person who's firing it, as the chakra drained by the twin lion fist goes to Hinata. On top of this, she also learned things like the 8 trigrams vacuum palms, which allowed her to fire condensed blasts of chakra in air that were so powerful that when done in conjunction with Neji, they were able to knock away one of the Ten Tails' tails. And thus, by the end of the 4th Great Shinobi World War and beyond it, Hinata was known as the village master of all things Gentle Fist. And she now, as an adult, is so incredibly practiced with Gentle Fist that she's able to knock people out with simply one strike to a Tenketsu point. On top of this, while Hinata isn't known for being a medical Kunoichi, she has been shown using the mystical palm technique, you know, the medical ninjutsu where you cover your hand in green chakra and then place it on a boo-boo and the boo-boo go bye-bye, and therefore she can use a fair amount of medical ninjutsu. And thus, within the confines of the anime, while Hinata doesn't get up to a whole lot, she does accomplish some things, like her battle against the Devapath, which is actually much longer in the anime than it is in the manga. See, because in the manga, instead of the Devapath seeming pressed and having to be on the defensive from Hinata and her twin lion fist, he kind of just like smacks her and then kills her like he did in the anime, but without the foreplay. However, if we are taking the anime's telling of this into consideration, that means that Hinata's power was important and strong enough that the Devapath had to dodge it, which is saying something. Tie that into the fact that she was also able to beat back a Jubi clone in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, and probably could have battled numerous more considering the fact that she barely struggled against one, and said Jubi clones were said to be higher than a Jonin level threat. That means that most likely in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, she should have been comparable to Neji in terms of power and talent. And that power only grows after the 4th Great Shinobi World War. See, with the death of Neji, Hinata is thrust into the spotlight of the Hyuga family as the next Hyuga princess. And thus, after the conclusion of the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Hinata becomes one of the more important people in the Hyuga family and a Jonin who has to go out and take on missions. And thus, that's kind of how she finds herself in the situation of the last. And the last is really where Hinata's scaling goes kind of crazy. See, because, well, I'm sure a lot of you are like, oh, didn't Hinata just get kidnapped in the last? That Naruto had to save her? And like, yeah. Kind of. However, there are a couple of moments in Naruto the Last that make Hinata look, if not incredibly strong, incredibly fast. See, for those of you who don't remember, Toneri controls puppets, but not in the traditional way that a puppet user would control puppets in the Naruto universe. No, because the Otsutsuki are able to create autonomous puppets that don't need chakra threads. Now, a large portion of this movie is member of the Konoha 13 ripping through these puppets. However, there's a head puppet, the most powerful of all the puppets. And Hinata, when she comes into combat against this head puppet, not only reacts to the puppet, but also blitzes the puppet and then proceeds to tear it apart. And so a lot of you are saying, okay, Nick, it's a puppet, that's not all that impressive. This puppet reacted to and dodged a punch from base Naruto. And say what you will about Naruto and Boruto being the strongest version of Naruto we've ever seen, Naruto in the Last has a real good argument for being the strongest Naruto we've ever seen, outside of Baryon mode, obviously. And well, obviously, this was base Naruto and not KCM2 Naruto or KCM2 plus Sage mode Naruto. Base Naruto has a litany of FTL feats. And for those of you who are being like, oh, he probably wasn't putting his all into it, he was on the moon trying to save Hinata, and he was screaming at this puppet to let her go. He was putting his all into it, and thus we assume that this puppet is roughly light speed because base mode Naruto is roughly light speed. That means that Hinata being able to blitz and piece up this light speed puppet puts her in the FTL category, which is insane. I'm aware. And mind you, all of this was before she got Hamura's chakra. But since we're talking about Hamura's chakra, let's talk about Hamura's chakra. What did it do? How powerful did it make her? We don't know. Nick, what do you mean we don't know? We pay you money to know. Well, first off, no, you don't. Google does. You pay me in attention. Get off Subway Surfers. Get off Subway Surfers. You can pay attention. You can do it. There's like 10 minutes left. Stop hitting skip on all my ads. But yeah, no, Hamura's chakra. We have no quantifiable way to prove that it made her any stronger whatsoever. What do I mean? Well, Hamura giving Hinata chakra wasn't exactly like Hagoromo giving Naruto and Sasuke chakra. See, Hamura giving Hinata chakra was more like, hey, use the last vestiges of my chakra to destroy the Tenseigan. And even after she was given Hamura's chakra, she still wasn't strong enough to destroy the Tenseigan on her own, which is why her and Naruto work collaboratively to destroy the Tenseigan. And the reason that they had to use a twin lion fist is because Naruto can't touch the Tenseigan as a non-Hyuga or Otsutsuki, and thus Hinata needed to coat both her and Naruto's hands in the twin lion fist so that he would technically be registered as a Hyuga. However, because we don't know how much damage it takes to destroy Tenseigan and how much of the work Naruto was doing, we can't quantify how much stronger Hinata got after Hamura's chakra. Though if we do assume a boost comparable to what Hagoromo gave to Naruto and Sasuke, then in that moment she would have gotten sizably stronger. And when you consider the fact that by the time that Hinata was battling against Toneri, she was able to see 20 kilometers ahead of herself using her Byakugan, if all of her stats were amped, that would be crazy. And honestly, Hinata getting a significant increase in power from this passing of chakra from Hamura makes a fair amount of sense when you consider the fact that she went toe-to-toe with Momoshiki temporarily and survived. See, both the anime, movie, and manga kind of skip over this fact, but when Momoshiki tried to abduct Naruto, Hinata tried to fight him off. And while we get no look into how well she did in the battle against Momoshiki, she does survive the battle, which is saying something? And thus, while Hinata doesn't necessarily have enough feats to scale her super accurately, it seems as though she's kind of all speed, no punch, which would make sense. Destruction isn't necessarily Hinata's bag. She's more about speed and precision. And thus, if I had to scale her AP, I would put it somewhere in the region of city level plus, as if she's able to deflect one of the tails of the 10 tails and is comparably powerful to Neji in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, that's about where her AP would be. Now, if we consider her battle against Momoshiki, her durability should be higher. We obviously don't know what Momoshiki hit her with or how many times he hit her, but Momoshiki, no matter how you slice it, can very easily be scaled to planetary. But even if you want to substantially lowball the battle that Hinata and Momoshiki had, you'd have to put her durability somewhere in the region of island level. And fortunately for us, scaling her speed at the peak of her power is the easiest of all of her stats to scale, as she was faster than the head puppet who could react to Naruto, making her FTL. And thus, with those stats in mind, and a Byakugan that can possibly see beyond 20 kilometers and identify all 361 Tenketsu points, we have a rather accurate depiction of what Hinata's level of power is. So now, let's talk about Sakura. Sakura's got a fair amount of feats, and the majority of them come in the medium of her AP because of how well known her strength is. See, we've multiple times throughout the story heard that Sakura's strength is terrifying. In fact, there's been multiple times throughout the story that both Naruto and Kakashi have been afraid of her strength, with one of the more prevalent times being when Naruto and Sakura were retaking the bell test against Kakashi. And after Sakura pulverized the ground, believing that Kakashi was down there, Naruto noted to never piss off Sakura, because she'll kill me. And this moment also struck legitimate fear in the heart of Kakashi. On top of this, just a few chapters later, Sakura found herself in combat against Sasori. And while you can sit here and say, oh, she was being controlled by Granichio, that doesn't augment her strength. And in this battle against Sasori, she destroys multiple of Sasori's most powerful puppets, the 3rd Kazekage puppet and the Heroku puppet. Now, while both of those feats are incredibly impressive, as the 3rd Kazekage puppet actively battled against the actual 3rd Kazekage, and they basically fought to a standstill, the Heroku puppet is a puppet built specifically to be defensive. And thus, by destroying this puppet and the 3rd Kazekage puppet, it was easy to scale her AP to somewhere in the region of city level. However, that was before she even awoke to the strength of 100 seal, or mitotic regeneration. And when you consider the fact that in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Hashirama openly said that Sakura was probably stronger than Tsunade, and that she was able to use more of the strength of her strength of 100 seal because she wasn't using any of the chakra to make herself look young, then it's pretty easy to scale her even higher. And all of this is backed up by the fact that the 3rd data book openly states that Sakura is as strong as Tsunade, who, mind you, was able to crack the rib cage of the Susanoo of Madara, something that Naruto's Ultra Big Ball Rasengan couldn't even do. And the Ultra Big Ball Rasengan was enough to take out any of the paths of pain. So once again, her AP in the beginning of the war arc scales to city level plus. Well, however, when you take into account that both the data books and the manga seem to imply that Team 7 start off the war arc at the same level of power as each other, that is to say that KCM1 Naruto, EMS Sasuke, and strength of 100 Sakura are all equally powerful, then she gets scaled pretty easily to the region of KCM1 Naruto and EMS Sasuke, which is island level. However, unfortunately for the remainder of the 4th Great Shinobi World War, she doesn't get any stronger, as she has no additional forms to tap into, and Hagoromo doesn't give her any chakra, but that does mean that she's the only person to head into the battle against Kaguya without Sage of Six Paths chakra, and she lands a blow on Kaguya. And I don't want to hear you say, oh, Kaguya got forced into that punch. She was able to land that punch because of how strong and how fast she is. And thus, before I continue the conversation about what her AP is, I feel as though it's important to touch on her speed. Sakura in the battle against Kaguya not only kept up with Kaguya, being able to track her movements, but was also the only person in that battle without the ability to track when she would hop in and out of portals, and thus she was at a much larger disadvantage than everybody else. And yet, not only was she able to keep up with the movements and the attacks of Kaguya, being able to dodge numerous of them, but she was also keeping up with KCM2, Sage of Six Paths mode Naruto, 6-Tome Rinnegan, and DMS Kakashi. Three of the strongest and fastest people in the universe. And thus, since we know that Kaguya had the ability to attack at the speed of light, and that Sakura was keeping up with her and everybody else in that fight, that means that Sakura's speed in the War Arc scales to FTL. And she has multiple feats that happen after the War Arc that corroborate that point. Like the fact that she was able to battle against multiple version 1 Tailed Beast cloak-wearing Anbu members, who are not only high-level Jonin, but were also getting Tailed Beast chakra amps. Ties into the fact that she was able to keep up with Blitz and incapacitate Shin, who was able to deal almost deadly damage on both Sasuke and Naruto simultaneously, and is, and this is one of my more controversial opinions, probably stronger than Madara while he was alive. He's definitely not stronger than 3 Rinnegan Madara. Then yeah, basically everything about Sakura proves that she is FTL+. But since we're talking about Shin, let's talk about Shin. Simply ignoring the fact that Sakura was able to knock out people who were completely controlling a Tailed Beast level 1 cloak, Sakura was able to, with one punch, incapacitate Shin. On top of that, she was able to trade multiple blows with Shin while he was using his Mangekyo Sharingan to control his own arm. And even Sasuke, who's incredible at determining how strong somebody is or isn't, said that Sakura had a fair chance at defeating Shin. And while Sakura probably wouldn't have defeated Shin without Sasuke stepping in, the fact that she was able to battle against Shin one-on-one in his own lair proves that Sasuke was pretty close to correct. But where does that put her AP? Well, I'll tell you. Shin was able to hurt Naruto and Sasuke, who by the time that they're adults have moon level durability. This is corroborated by the fact that in the last, Naruto was able to tank an attack that cut the moon in half. So if Shin is able to injure Naruto when an attack that cut the moon in half wasn't able to hurt Naruto, that means that Shin's AP probably falls somewhere in the region of moon level. And with that line of logic, with Sakura being able to injure that person who's able to inflict moon level damage, that means that her AP is probably somewhere in the region of moon level. And that makes sense. If anything of Sakura should keep up with Naruto and Sasuke's, it should be her AP. She has always been said to be stronger than Naruto and Sasuke, and so in the form of raw attack power, she should scale somewhere in the region of Naruto and Sasuke. And yes, both Naruto and Sasuke have at least moon level AP, but this also means that Sakura's durability is somewhere in the region of moon level, so substantially higher than Hinata's. However, this isn't the only unfortunate fact for Hinata. See, because Sakura, while she doesn't technically have a Byakugan, also kind of does. See, Sakura's chakra control is so incredibly precise that one time in a light novel when somebody fired a giant fireball at her, she was able to deduce where the chakra weak points of the fireball were, coat her hand in chakra, and split the fireball in half. She also has the ability, by funneling her chakra into an area, to map out that area in her mind. That is to say that in Sasuke Shinden, when her and Sasuke came across a giant underground lair, she funneled her chakra into the ground and was able to map out the exact layout of the lair, being able to see what rooms had people in them, how big the rooms were, if there was traps, and so on and so forth. And therefore, while it's not necessarily as useful as a Byakugan, as it requires a fair amount of prep time, Sakura does basically have Byakugan Light. Now, having to cut ninjutsu in half isn't necessarily something that Sakura's gonna have to worry about in a battle against Hinata. Well, in the anime, multiple times Hinata has been shown to use elemental ninjutsu, like her water senbon jutsu. She's never really been shown to use any of that in the manga. And therefore, the only thing even remotely resembling an elemental attack that she'll see from Hinata is probably her air palm. On top of this, Sakura doesn't have to worry about using her invulnerability to genjutsu because Hinata doesn't use genjutsu. And that's when it really comes down to it. The only thing that either of these two would use in a battle against each other is these mitts. But in a battle of those said mitts, who comes out on top? And honestly, this one's kind of fun. See, well, obviously you can sit here and say, oh, it's Sakura. Sakura punches at a moon level. If Hinata gets caught, she's dead. And you would be right. If Sakura lands a singular blow on Hinata, it's wraps. However, if we're assuming that both Hinata and Sakura fall in the region of FTL, that means that their speed is almost relative. And honestly, in a fight where Hinata and Sakura's speed are equal, I believe that Hinata's greater taijutsu ability gives her an inherent leg up. See, well, yes, of course, Sakura and and Hinata possibly move at the same speed, Hinata is more well-versed in taijutsu battles. It's literally all she's done her entire life. Ties into the fact that if Sakura tries to do something like punching the ground and launching a bunch of rubble up so that she can disappear amongst the rubble and pop behind Hinata, Hinata would see that happen. Her Byakugan allows her to see through everything, up to 20 kilometers at a time. So in this taijutsu battle, Hinata also has no blind spots, something we can't say the same of for Sakura. On top of this, we don't necessarily know if something like the strength of 100 seal or mitotic regeneration can heal your chakra network. See, obviously mitotic regeneration allows you to regrow entire limbs and the entirety of your stomach if it gets punched out by a tailed beast tail, and in that process you're gonna have to regrow your chakra network. But if hypothetically Hinata were to strike one of Sakura's Tenketsu points and stop chakra flow through that point, there's nothing necessarily telling us in manga canon that Sakura would be able to reignite her chakra flow. Now, of course, you can make the argument that Sakura's best in the universe chakra control, when combined with her medical ninjutsu, would allow for her to basically nullify any gentle fist attacks, but we can't know that for certain. But if there was one person in the entirety of the Naruto universe who'd be able to kickstart their own chakra points back up again, it would be Sakura. And all of this doesn't even necessarily take into account the twin lion fists. See, because every single time that Hinata would come into contact with Sakura, she would be leeching some of Sakura's chakra. So with all of this taken into consideration, does Hinata win this fight? Now, yes, I do believe when it comes down to a taijutsu battle between Sakura and Hinata, Hinata has more important and more pertinent hacks. See, Hinata's fighting style doesn't necessarily aim to maim, and therefore the strength of 100 seal and its mitotic regeneration wouldn't necessarily have anything to heal, assuming they can't heal a damaged chakra network. But since I would say that if there was a chance that anybody could do it, it would be Sakura, who could heal a chakra network, and the fact that if their speed isn't equal, that Sakura's actually faster, then the possibility of Hinata being able to shut down enough chakra points in Sakura's body before Sakura is able to hit what would be a deadly blow against Hinata just seems unlikely to me. Like, yeah, I believe that if Hinata and Sakura battled 10 times, that Hinata would win once or twice, but those circumstances would widely revolve around Hinata somehow shutting down the chakra flow of the strength of 100 seal, as the strength of 100 seal and the chakra weld in the forehead of the user should operate like basically any other Tenketsu point. But really, when it comes down to it, I believe Sakura's durability and her AP is just too much for Hinata to conquer. When you're fighting against somebody as fast as you and one punch is all they need to kill you, your chances aren't great. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think. In a death match between Hinata and Sakura, who do you think comes out victorious? Tell me in the comments below, and to all you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Now, it's Friday, so I'm gonna go have 1 million beers.